Good afternoon, everyone. Again, I warmly welcome you to this free and virtual agricultural training module number 3, Vegetable Crop Cultivation, organized by the Public Service Credit Union Cooperative Society. My name is Michelle Shah, agricultural engineer with 26 years of technical experience and engineering solutions. During these unprecedented times caused by COVID-19, we, the members of PSCU, are doubling our efforts to engage the public by harnessing digital technologies to bring training and development capacity initiatives to a much wider listening and viewing audience, and to benefit from training opportunities such as this one. The house rules of this webinar are as follows. The training session is divided into 2 parts, and there will be a 5-minute intermission halfway through the presentation. You may keep your videos on during the presentation, and the administrator will have all participants muted, however. During the presentation, you may ask questions by raise of hand located at the bottom of the screen. The administrator will then inform me when this happens, and I will then answer your questions at that point in time. Another way you may ask questions is by using the chat box, which appears on the right side of your screen when you select the icon. You can also ask questions via email at michelle.shah@pscutt.com, as appears on the contact slide at the end. At the end of the presentation, you will have a few survey questions to answer, which will come up after the webinar, which is a brief questionnaire on what you thought about the training. I encourage all of you to take full advantage of this online training material, which is being made available to you. These sessions are being recorded and will be posted on the PSCU website in due course. All the participants will be receiving certificates at the end of the training via email also. Once again, welcome to everyone, and I look forward to seeing you again in many more sessions to come, and I wish you a very fruitful learning journey. I thank you, and I'll now share my screen. Okay, today we'll be looking at vegetable crop cultivation, today being the 11th of February, 2021. And we will be discussing all the various certain crops we'll be looking at, okay? The definition of vegetables, it's an annual plant cultivated as field and garden crops in the open and under protected structures and used almost exclusively for food. These are the 7 types of vegetables we'll be talking about in today's module. Okra, melanjan, hot pepper, tomato, corn, cucumber, pumpkin. Other popular vegetables grown in Trinidad would be like the cauliflower, broccoli, pimentos, sweet peppers, and even breadfruit. These are all popular vegetables grown in Trinidad. So we would be looking at 7 today. Let me recap that you need to have a proper growing media for planting these vegetables in the home garden, or if you have open fields. The growing media consists of mostly soil-based growing media containing inorganic material being sharp sand, organic material being the soil, the manure, compost, and peat moss. The additives to this media would be fertilizer and limestone. So we see how these media material look in the photo and on the right side. Guidelines for growing media, you must have it must provide good aeration and drainage, sufficient moisture for use by the plant, nutrients for the proper plant growth and yields, free from pests and disease, and with a pH value of 6 to 7. The the proportions of the soils, sharp sand, and manure would be a ratio of 2 to 1 to 1 in ratios. So the fertilizers are normally the 12, 24, 12, and plus trace elements, TE. Those are the organic trace elements that are added, such as the manganese, boron, zinc, or copper. And limestone is added pre-planting, especially for tomatoes and peppers. So limestone is necessary to reduce prevent the soil from being too acidic. Let's start now. Okra, okra is part of the vegetable family known as okra. It is part of the hibiscus plant family and is available in 2 varieties. The green type is a popular one in Trinidad we have, and there's a red okra that is grown in Tobago. Okra cultivation. Firstly, we soak the okra seeds overnight to soften the outer shell and cut germination time by a week or more. And you would be able to get the okra to harvest much sooner. Germination occurs between 6 days and for the soaked seeds and 3 weeks for the ones that are not soaked. Then you mix 1 handful of rotted manure with the soil in each planting hole or deep pot. Dig the hole 1 to 2 centimeters and keep the soil moist. Seedlings require much water. You need to have sufficient water, and you space the holes 3 feet apart within the rows, as is shown in the diagram, and 4 feet apart between rows. Then you sow 2 to 3 seeds in each hole of the soil or in the plant pot, about 1 inch deep. Water daily during dry season or dry periods and ensure excess water drains off the planting area. Thin out after 3 weeks, leaving 1 strong plant per hole or pot and water daily. Transplant other plants as needed. Fertilizing of okra. To encourage root growth, choose complete fertilizer high in phosphorus, such as the 12-24-12, and these fertilizers can easily be found in garden shops. Apply 1 teaspoon 2 weeks after germination and at least 2 inches away from the plant. To support the plant growth and to have good yields, continue fertilizing every 10 to 14 days for the duration of the plant life. Apply granular NPK fertilizer high in potassium, such as 12-12-17, at a rate of 1 teaspoon per plant. Note, it is advised you must not apply too much or apply too close, and use as advised or otherwise the plant could be killed. The cultural practices, we maintain the plant health by trimming dry and yellowing plant parts with a dry, clean knife to encourage new plant growth and more fruit formation. Leave a few okras to dry on the plant to provide you with seeds for the next planting. Managing pest and disease using biological agents and chemicals. Okra is favorite for the hibiscus mealybug, whitefly, aphids, and mites. Watering the soil area, not the plants, and ensuring good drainage to avoid causing plant disease such as stem end rot and powdery mildew, and reduce fungal problems. Using and properly applying recommended fungicides, insecticides, and miticides to help control these pests and diseases. Always alternate pesticides and follow label instructions carefully. Integrated pest management. This is based on cultural and biological methods and is the best approach to controlling pest and disease in a home garden. And pesticides should be used as a last resort because these have toxic chemicals in them, and pesticides is not recommended when it is high in toxicity for human health and livestock as well. Harvesting of okra, use sharp clean knife to cut pods. Leave about 1 inch of the stem intact on the okra and sample 1 or 2 to determine if they snap easily at the tips. This will indicate that majority of okras are ready for harvesting, and pick okras every other day and store in a cool place. Harvest or remove pods on time to encourage proper flowering and good yields. It is important to harvest okra when the pods are young, as they become tough, woody, and inedible if left on the plant too long. Local varieties will be ready for harvesting approximately 60 days after planting, or 4 to 7 days after flowering. Imported varieties can be harvested in 45 days or so after planting. Advantages of planting okra, it is low maintenance home garden plant. It is the most heat and drought tolerant. It grows year round and can tolerate any type of soil like heavy clay, and it can be interplanted with other vegetables or ornamentals. 2 okra plants can supply enough fruits or pods for the home use. It is a very healthy source of vitamins A and C, calcium, carbohydrates, antioxidants, protein, fiber, and iron. Fiber, unsaturated fats, and oleic acids. Let us now start on the melangen vegetable now. There are many varieties of the melangen plant, such as the black diamond, long purple, and the la pastora. Melangen is a part of the vegetable family known as eggplant, baigan, or aubergine, brinjal, or Guinea squash. It is related to the tomato, pepper, and potato plant family. Another type of the melangen also is the orangues. That is farmers early Victoria, and these are other types which can, that is a type that is resistant to the anthracnose and bacteria wilt. Cultivation of melangen. We choose open pots in full sunlight as the plant does not do well in shaded areas. You must mix 2 handfuls of well-rotted manure with the soil in each planting hole or deep plant pot. Melangen grows best in soil which is rich in organic matter. Dig holes of 1 to 2 centimeters deep, as melangen is a deep rooting crop, reaching depths of 35 centimeters, which is about a foot in depth. Sow 2 to 3 seeds in each hole or each plant pot, placing the seeds about 1 inch deep. Thin out 3 to 4 weeks after germination and transport the seedlings 1 per pot or hole in the late afternoon. Stake the seedlings when planting or transplanting, as tall varieties may require stem support. Water daily during the dry periods, especially in clay soils, and ensure that excess water drains from the area. Cultural practices for melangen. Melangen must be trimmed or cut back, which can result in a new flush of growth and prolong the life of the crop. Watering adequately, including irrigation in dry conditions, since melangen needs a lot of water. You manage the pests and diseases, mainly mites, whiteflies, thrips, aphids, which cause deformation and unsightly sunken spots and scarring on leaves and fruits, and using biological agents and chemicals. Other pests include the melangen fruitworm, the shothole beetle, borers, caterpillars, lacewing bugs, and sucking insects. We also use fungicides for prevention of fungi. Insecticides and miticides help control pests and disease as well, and alternate these pesticides and follow the label instructions very closely. Harvesting of the melangen allow the melangen to grow to the full size before harvesting for a higher volume crop. Use protective clothing when harvesting to minimize skin irritation. Look for the glossy, thin, firm skin plants, the fruits, but this is an indicator that they are ready. Use a clean, sharp knife or pruner to cut the melangen and keep the short piece of the stem above the cap. Handle and treat the melangen gently as it is easily bruised. Cut to see if the inner flesh is cream colored and the seeds should be small and barely visible. This is a sign that the melangen are ready for harvest. Regular harvest promote heavier yields, leave the pods on when harvesting. Advantages of growing these melangen. It is easiest among its vegetable family, such as tomato and pepper, to grow. It grows year-round and bears the vegetable or fruit for a long time, between 6 to 9 months and more, with proper plant care. It may be interplanted with other vegetables or ornamentals in the home, and one tree can supply 4 to 5 pounds of melangen for the home use. It is nutrient-dense food, high in antioxidants, contains a healthy amount of carbohydrates, fiber, protein, manganese, folate, potassium, vitamins K and C, and small amounts of other nutrients, including niacin, magnesium, and copper, minerals and fiber as well. Let us look at hot peppers. Hot peppers evolved in this part of the world in the Caribbean, so they are perfectly adapted to our environmental conditions. Peppers contain capsaicin, which is used in a variety of medicines to treat arthritis, cancer, inflammation, pain, and a variety of other ailments. Peppers are also high in vitamin A, B, and C. The varieties of hot pepper in Trinidad are the Scotch bonnet, the Farrier series, the Hood, the Cardi Green, West India, and the West Indies red. The pungent taste in hot pepper is due to the chemical capsaicin, and the hotness of variety is measured by the Scoville units. Trinidad and Tobago is noted for producing some of the hottest peppers in the world, with the Scoville rating greater than 100,000 units. So this is a picture here this is the West Indies pepper, red pepper. And the next slide, you will actually see the names of the various types. So you will see, this is the Scotch bonnet, which is a light green to yellow. Then the Farrier series, which is a dark green to yellow. Then you have the Hood hot pepper, which is dark green to red. The Cardi green, which is a dark green to red as well. And the West Indies red pepper is light green to red. The West Indies red is the most popular one. And we also have others known like the Seven Pots, which is extremely hot pepper, and there are a few others as well. The only ones that are resistant, though, to the tobacco mosaic virus are the Cardi Green and the West Indies red. They are resistant to that particular virus. This is the process from seeding to harvest when you have hot pepper being grown. So from the nursery, it takes 1 to 3 weeks in the nursery to become mature seedling. Then after 3 weeks, you remove the seedling and transplant into the pot or the land, and it grows in the land during a 4 to 7 week period. When it gets mature now, it begins to flower, and flowering takes 7 to 8 weeks. Following the flowering, when the flowering at the end of the 7 to 8 weeks, it matures to the fruit stage. And in 10 to 12 weeks is duration, that will be when harvesting can take place, during the 10 to 12th week. After the 12-week period, you have harvesting, and that harvesting period is from the 10th to 30th week of the cultivation process. So from seeding to harvest, we have a 30-week period, and you usually get a harvest of a large yield after that time. So in selecting the seedlings, you purchase these from a reputable nursery and examine properly for good seedlings, where you look for these features: glossy green appearance of the leaves, approximately 6 leaves, mostly white roots with no sign of insect or disease attack, strong even growth in the seedling, and observe the nursery for presence of disease and pests like whiteflies. So you try to pick plants where you purchase the plants, seedlings where there are not a lot of these pests in the compound. Seedlings are usually ready in 4 to 6 weeks or at 8 inches in height. Hot pepper cultivation, you transplant seedlings when the seedlings are 3 to 4 weeks old, late in the afternoon when it is cool temperatures. Keep seedling plug intact while transplanting and ensure the hole is large enough to hold the seedling's root plug. Mix 2 handfuls of well-rotted manure with soil in each planting hole. Into each hole, place 1 seedling and ensure it is firmly positioned. You apply then a soil insecticide as a root drench to protect against cutting insects like mole crickets, soil beetles, and tire worms. In the rainy season, apply a soil fungicide by drenching the root zone after planting. Spray the plants thoroughly with a copper beta fungicide. Spacing of the plants, when you have to put the plants in the ground, in the field, and so you take them from the crates that the seedlings are put. Sorry, and then first to prepare the land now to put these seedlings, you firstly brush cut and clear the land of vegetation. Following that, you plow and rotivate the soil to a depth of 8 to 10 inches. Incorporate cured manure into the soil at 1 to 2 tons per acre. That is, for persons who want to do it on a larger scale, you use 1 to 2 tons per acre of cured manure. If several hot peppers are grown together, then space the seedlings. The spacing is as follows for large areas. High density spacing, where you have 2,700 plants approximately, you space them 3 feet apart within the rows and 5 feet apart between rows. So the spacing of the rows is wider than within the rows, than the plants are within the rows. The low density spacing for, say, 2,200 plants approximately, 4 feet per row within the row, and then 6 feet between rows. So you get a larger spacing. However, hot peppers can be intercropped with most other vegetables. The soil types for growing hot peppers, for the heavy clay soil, prepare cambered beds at 20 feet wide with ridges on top as the planting rows. For the loam or sandy soil types, you prepare single ridges and furrows and establish drains between the cambered beds and on ridges or the plot for proper runoff of water.
Hi, Michelle, we have a question.
Yes, good afternoon.
Abidil?
Good afternoon.
Sorry, that was an error. Sorry. I just came in. Apparently, I touched you.
Thank you. Okay, Abigail. Thanks a lot. For the field sanitation and the maintenance of the hot pepper fields, you have to prevent and reduce spread of pest and disease. So therefore, you keep a clean field free of weeds and fallen crop residues. You must have clean boots and tools after use so that you won't be spreading any possible viruses or fungi that may be attached to the protective gears. And you keep drains clear at all times. Mulching of the pepper seedling or plant. Use mulch during the dry periods, and this helps to reduce water loss from the soil. It reduces the weed growth and controls insect problems that may happen where they will want to attack the stems and so on. Mulching reduces weeding by up to 90%. So this is what mulching entails. You surround the plant with soil to a height, to a certain height up the stem of the seedling. Molding of the plants now. Molding plants is done 2 weeks after transplanting. Follow a fertilizer application with molding to cover the fertilizer. So, and do not place soil high up on the stem. So molding, this is the diagram I showed here. This is a mold on a plant. You build it to a height up on the stem, and that is done so that it will cover the fertilizer that you're placing around the plant. And that also it prevents it supports the plant as that is the purpose of it. The fertilizing of the pepper, we apply 1 tablespoon of high phosphorus fertilizer of 12-24-12 dissolved in a liter of water. Then this volume will fertilize 10 plants. So that is when you transplant the seedlings into the ground, these 10 plants must be applied with this high phosphorus fertilizer. Applied either to the roots, once to the roots and all the leaves by a foliar method, meaning by spraying also. The growing stage of the pepper now, you have a different ratio of fertilizer being applied, where you apply high nitrogen fertilizer in a 20-10-10 ratio. You use 30 grams or 2 tablespoons per plant. And then when in the flowering stage of the growth, you apply a high potassium fertilizer in a 12-12-17 plus 2 of trace elements. Then you use 4 tablespoons per plant in this fertilizer, and every 2 weeks for the lifetime of the crop, you apply this high potassium fertilizer to the plant until harvesting. But remember, we do not apply fertilizers close to the harvesting stage, so that you wouldn't have any chemicals, in the fruit, in the actual vegetable that is produced. Irrigating of the hot pepper, you water the seedlings immediately after transplanting in the absence of rain, and you do this daily. Ensure that excess water drains off the planting area, and you water the mature plants at least every 2 days in very dry weather. Avoid splashing during irrigation to prevent spreading of diseases, of the soil-borne diseases, and apply 1/4 to 1/2 gallon of water per plant. In sprinkle irrigation, the soil splash may encourage spread of disease. So it is usually more recommended to use irrigation methods where you apply to the root zone, such as in drip irrigation methods. In fountain tubing irrigation, This emits spouts of water 6 inches to 2 feet high according to the water pressure applied. The diagram on the right shows what the fountain tubing looks like. And this is a type of irrigation where it spouts the water, and you can also have it turned upside down where it could spout downwards as well into the ground. So this is a double, it can be provided, it can provide the irrigation water in 2 ways. Pest and disease control for the hot pepper. We see these are the destructive thing, what happens when pests attack the plants. And pest and disease left unchecked can hinder the plant's ability to produce food. These problems can be managed with good cultural practices, biological agents, and chemicals. A combination of these methods is known as integrated pest management, which is highly recommended. And we choose appropriate control methods after assessing the problem. We consider cultural and biological methods before chemical control and alternate chemicals used in a spray program. Use chemicals which do not harm natural biological agents, such as the Cocorite bug. So this bug in the diagram, that is called the Cocorite bug, or they may call it the pirate bug as well. This is a natural enemy of the thrips, which is a harmful pest in hot peppers and vegetables. So this pirate bug here is that attacks the thrip and kills it. The control measures for the hot pepper cultivation. We have the cultural control, where you, as far as possible, plant varieties, use those varieties that are resistant to disease, use the mulch to interrupt the life cycle of insect pests, and use overhead irrigation to knock off insects from the plants. That is when there are lots of insects. The overhead irrigation assists with getting the insects off of the plant. Do not plant the hot pepper in the same place year after year. Then the biological control measures use safe insecticides to preserve natural enemies of the thrips. That is the pirate bug, as I described before. Chemical control measures where you assess the problems before applying any chemical treatment. You use environmentally friendly chemicals, alternate suitable chemicals to avoid pests becoming accustomed to the treatment, and apply insect growth regulators when high populations are observed, and alternate these growth regulators with a pesticide that acts on the adults. The application of the fertilizer, it is similar to the previous ones I explained. Usually you have high phosphorus fertilizers and high nitrogen fertilizers followed by high potassium. So this is again a similar application as I mentioned in the previous slide for the okra and the melanjan. And dry salting is done where you apply granular form of fertilizer. The fertilizer application where you have wet salting now, you use the option in the dry season or in the very dry periods. You create a liquid fertilizer to apply to the root of the plant. So this now would be the liquid form of fertilizer. By filling 45-gallon drum with water to 1/3 of the level and adding the following to make a concentrate. What you will add to the barrel of the third level, 1/3 of the barrel would be 10 pounds of the 10-24-12, 2 pounds of potash, 1/2 pound of 20-20-20, and 1 pint of blossom booster. So this would give you the liquid concentrate, which you can then use to spray and apply to the roots of the plant. For the young
we have a
plants,
question.
yes, good afternoon.
Sheila.
Good afternoon, Sheila.
Oh, sorry, my hand pressed it. I was just trying to expand
Okay.
your sorry about that.
Thank you. That's no problem. Thank you.
We have another question.
Yes. Good afternoon.
Lisel.
Hello. Good afternoon.
Hi, good afternoon. My question had to do with how does mulch interrupt the life cycle of bulbs?
The mulch. Yes, well, the mulch helps to give support to the plants, yes, and then it provides the nutrients because remember it is high rich in nutrients. It covers the fertilizer that is applied to the root zone area. So it also has you have that protecting the base of the plant, and it contains the insecticides and so on that would prevent the insects from attacking. So it has a high, it is high in it serves a purpose, a very good purpose.
Okay, thank you. And one last question is, if you want to do a kitchen garden, could you do it without the use of fertilizer and still be successful?
Well, it is recommended, the fertilizer, because you will definitely get a better yield of plants, higher quality and everything. But if you don't use a fertilizer, the plant may grow, but the quality would definitely not be as, the quality would not be as that you would be requiring for high yields. So definitely try to keep to the good agricultural practices to get the best yield, because you want it to be, not, the higher nutrients and so on when you carry out the proper agricultural practices, right? Okay, thanks for that question. Okay,
we have a couple more questions.
Okay, sure.
Winston.
Good afternoon.
Hi, Winston. Okay, we have hello.
Hi. Yeah, this is Winston. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Are you hearing me?
Yes, I am.
Could you use manure alone for your fertilizer?
I don't know. That would not be sufficient, because remember you looking to have NPK as the nutrients you be supplying. Manure has the ammonium and those other chemicals. And remember, manure has to be cured and then added to compost and so on. That is part of the growing media. Remember in the second slide that I showed earlier, you have growing media, which is a combination of the, remember, 2 to 1 to 1. You have the sharp sand, then you have you have a ratio of sharp sand, compost, and manure. So you use the soil media in that ratio. So you have to have those 3 elements to make up a proper soil media. And that is what will help to give the proper nutrients. And the manure is not the only thing for fertilizer. So that's all I could contribute there. Okay, all right, thanks for the question. So for younger plants now, when we are doing the wet salting fertilizing, you use 10 pounds of the 12-24-12, half a pound of 20-20-20, and you add 5 pounds of calcium nitrate and stir the mixture. You fill the drum with water and stir and apply half pint of the mixture to the young plants and 1 pint to the flowering plants every 3 to 4 days. You stir the every application before applying, and you continue irrigating as usual. Now, the diseases which I will talk about here in the hot pepper are the Phytophthora root rot, the bacterial leaf spot, and the anthracnose. These are the most popular diseases in hot peppers. And with the Phytophthora, the symptoms are sudden drooping of the plant, darkening of the lower leaves, heavy leaf drop with small fruits remaining, and blackened and rotting roots. To control this fungus, which is spread usually by water in poorly drained soils, we control it by improving the drainage in the area. You remove the diseased plants and you have to apply a soil fungicide to the root zone of the plant. Then for the other disease in hot pepper, bacterial leaf spots, the symptoms are the small brown irregular water-soaked spots on the leaves, stems, and fruits. Then the spots that start generally on the lower leaves and move upwards. Leaf drop of heavily infected leaves. And in order to control these symptoms, we must practice field sanitation, especially at the flowering stage, use crop rotation, mulch to avoid the rain splash, and spray with a copper-based fungicide. Then for the third disease, anthracnose, which is another fungal disease prevalent in the rainy season, and also is a post-harvest disease as well. The symptoms are slightly rounded and sunken spots on young mature peppers and on the stems and the leaves as well. Spots will become water-soaked with a brownish black center. The control measures are use hot pepper seeds from healthy plants and remove the diseased plant parts when they are observed. Practice crop rotation, spray with a contact fungicide weekly in the rainy season. Harvesting of hot peppers. They may be harvested whenever needed, but it is only when they are mature that you will get their full flavor. Peppers are mature when their walls have thickened and they have reached correct size when their color begins to change. They may be harvested mature green and allowed to ripen in storage. Mature peppers easily snap off the plant. The two-fingered method is recommended to pick the hot peppers and remove the entire fruit along with its stem so as to encourage the plant to continue flowering. Now we reach cultivation of tomatoes. Tomato cultivation, tomatoes can be grown throughout the year, and they also called lycopersicon. That's the biological name. You can start harvesting tomato at 8 to 9 weeks after transplanting. And then one tomato plant can yield 10 to 15 pounds of the vegetable. Tomato belongs to the Solanaceous family, as I said before. Other crops belong to this family, such as pepper and melon. And the tomatoes are high in vitamins A and C and lycopene. The varieties that are popular in Trinidad, I will just call out 6 of them out of this list that are mostly popular in Trinidad are the Royal Pearl, the Royal Gold, the Chandini, the Diane. Diane is highly popular in Trinidad. Then you have the Hybrid 61 and the Akash. The other names listed, those are a few other names, but in Trinidad, we may not have all of them. The Heatmaster pepper, Diane, and Capitan are tolerant to bacterial wilt disease. The Heatmaster, which is a type of tomato, the fruit is red and tasty with long shelf life, and weighs 180 to 200 grams. It's tolerant to some strains of bacterial wilt disease. So these are just some varieties that I've listed here. The cultural practices, these are, as seen in the picture, they usually grow it on these stakes, wooden stakes. These stakes are usually 6 feet in height. So they're about 2 meters, these stakes that are placed in the ground. Staking is necessary for tomato plants, especially in the wet season. And the plants can be individually tied to the stakes. They can be tied to overhead wires or trellises, or they can be caged. You will see the tying of these onto these stakes in later slides. I will show you that. Using seedlings are grown, so you can use styrofoam cups, seedling trays or boxes and beds to prepare the seedlings. The seeds must be dusted with Sevin to prevent destruction from ants and other soil insects. Mix the well-rotted pen manure into the soil. You sow the seeds 1/2 inch deep in rows, leaving 4 inches between rows. And cover these seeds lightly with soil. If styrofoam cups are used, sow 2 seeds per cup and thin out later to the healthier one. Wet as often as necessary, and the seeds will take approximately 5 days to germinate. This is the land preparation for these tomato plants. I explained in the first module about the grow box, so you can have the grow box system with trellises as shown here. 1 week before planting the seedlings into the grow box or the soil, clear the land of weeds and shrubs and debris. Then you use beds on flat or gentle sloping land, and on steep lands, use the ridges of the steep lands. The beds should be 4 feet in width and allowing 8 to 10 inches for drains between each of the beds. Remember in the grow box, I gave the dimension was 5 feet in width by 30 feet in length. So it should have that dimension. That would be the standard dimension, so that you will be able to proportion the growing medium when you go to purchase it, the medium and so media and so. Then you treat soil with fungicides. The fungicides used would be the Banrot, that is 1 teaspoon per gallon, or Bravo, which is 1 tablespoon per gallon before planting to help prevent wilting. So the soil must be treated with fungicide. The soil preparation now, you prepare the beds by tilling the area using the garden fork. Then you add agricultural lime, which is calcium carbonate, sold as limestone or garden lime, to the soil, 1 handful per hole, and mix well. Drainage is very important to prevent that due to the water logging and disease. So as I said, you plan the drains 8 to 10 inches between rows. The transplanting of the seedlings will be ready for transplant at 3 to 4 weeks in that stage. And the best time to do transplanting is in the evening or early morning when it is cool. Water the seedlings before transplanting to moisten the soil and prevent damage to the plant. Dig holes with 3 feet between the rows and 1.5 feet within the rows. Apply a handful of treated pen manure to each hole, then remove seedlings gently and place in holes at the same level above the soil as we were in the seedling box or bed or the cups. Then firm up the soil around the roots and wet the plants. The spacing of the seedlings now, If several plants are grown together, space the seedlings 1.5 feet apart within the rows, 3 feet between rows. However, tomatoes can be intercropped with most other vegetables and allow at least half square meter of root room per tomato plant. Incorporate a handful of well-rotted manure to each hole. Irrigating the plant, well, as we see here, this is one of the irrigation lines that we have in the field shown here. In absence of rain, watering is compulsory. However, care is taken to avoid damage to flowers when watering the plant. Irregular watering affects the fruit quality. It makes plants susceptible to blossom end rot when you have irregular watering. And even the shape of the plant could be affected when they are not watered regularly, the shape of the vegetable, I mean. Fertilizing tomatoes at transplanting, apply 1 tablespoon high phosphorus fertilizer, 12-24-12, dissolved in a liter of water. This volume will fertilize 10 plants and repeat every 14 days for 4 weeks. Then apply to the roots or to the leaves. Fertilizing during the growing stage, apply high nitrogen fertilizer, 20-10-10, with 2 teaspoons per plant, and apply every 2 weeks. And you apply the granular or dissolved in water. It could be done either with granular or spraying. Fertilizing at the flowering stage, you apply high potassium fertilizer of 12-12-17 plus 2 trace elements, and you use 2 teaspoons per plant. Apply granular, dissolve in water, and every 2 weeks for the lifetime of the crop. So you can use the granular form or the liquid form where it is dissolved in water. Calcium, either granular or foliar, is recommended throughout the life of the crop. 1 handful per plant every 2 weeks. Oh. I think I'll have to go back to the beginning. Let me try and find that slide. Okay, I think let me get the spot where I was. Yes, so sorry about that. I pressed something. Oh, yes. Okay, so I just spoke of the transplanting and the fertilizer. Right. Let me start from the staking. I was telling you that the staking of tomatoes, when you tie it onto the stakes, this is how you tie it. So you have the strings here and the blue strings. And staking is a good practice and is recommended, especially during rainy season. And you will need stakes and twine when you're doing that. You stake the tomatoes 2 to 3 weeks after the transplanting. Then you place a sturdy stake on the leeward side of the plant about 3 inches away. Pass the twine around twice around the stem of the plant and twist it in one turn. So you do not tie the plant too tightly against the stake. Tying of the tomato plants, this is another diagram here where you see how it's tied. You pass the twine around the stake and then you tie the plant as often as is necessary to keep it in place. Vines will grow to 6 feet tall, so you need sturdy supports, either tomato stakes or cages to hold them because each can produce heavy yields. Planting of the tomatoes, these are the planting holes, 10 centimeters deep and 10 centimeters in diameter. They can be planted in containers or in the ground. Large pots with drainage holes in the bottom could be used, and the containers must be 12 inches in depth, but bigger sizes are better. The tray of some sort should be placed under the pot to catch excess water that drains out of the bottom of the pot. So use well-draining soil, and we recommend good potting mix with added organic matter. Plant 1 tomato plant per pot and choose from bush or dwarf varieties. Cherry tomatoes may also be grown in pots. Taller varieties may need to be staked, and you place the pots in sunny spots with 6 to 8 hours of sunlight. Keeping the soil moist, containers will dry out more quickly than in the garden soil. So check daily and provide extra water during very hot periods. Container planting of tomatoes, they can be grown easily in hanging baskets, window boxes, planters, all types of containers. There are even hanging baskets. I will show you later. There are some pictures of the hanging pots. To get the most from the container growth, you need to match the size of the plant to the overall size of the container. For instance, the small varieties are well suited to hanging baskets or window boxes. Make certain that the pot is deep enough to accommodate the plant's root system. A 12-inch standard depth of pot with the same diameter is suitable for most of the plants. Buckets can be used to grow tomatoes as well. And you have also half barrels, and just make sure the container has adequate drainage. This is showing the spacing of the stakes when you're doing staking of the tomatoes. Fill the pot with loose soil if you're using pots, well-draining potting soil. And add organic materials like well-rotted shavings or manure. And you can try equal mix of potting soil, perlite, peat moss, and compost. Tomato seeds can be started indoors in the dry season, and put the young plants once they become available in the area. When you're planting them in upside down containers, you could have these buckets, and you have the hole at the base of the bucket, and you could actually plant. The tree grows upside down in this case. And these are 5-gallon buckets that they have used. You have to cut a hole 3 to 4 inches at the base of the bucket. 3 to 4 inches in diameter, and you push the root ball of the tomato through the hole in the bottom of the upside down container. So that is how it is started, by putting the root ball of the tomato plant, that is the seedling, it is pushed through the hole, and then you fill the bucket with the planting material. Do not use the dirt from the garden. As I said, use the potting soil. And the growth will bring a lot of yields when you carry out the cultural practices for the growth of the tomato. Water at least once a day and twice if it is very high temperatures as 29 degrees Celsius. So it could be watered twice a day at high temperatures. Now, when you harvesting tomatoes, avoid harvesting wet tomatoes unless they are to be used right away. Tomatoes are mature when they are no longer shiny, there are no deep grooves, and the change in color is visible. To avoid injury to the plant or the inflorescence, use a sharp knife and cut the flower stalk or stem of the tomato. Store the tomato in cool, dry cupboards and allow to ripen naturally. So they can be picked before being ripe, and you store in cool, dry areas. The cultural practices of the tomato cultivation: you prepare the growing medium as recommended. You put enough drains to remove excess water. Plant the varieties that are resistant to disease. Practice crop rotation. Don't plant tomatoes or any member of the solanaceous family in the same spot continuously. And the members of the solanaceous family will include tomato, melangem, and pepper. After the crop of tomato, plant a crop from another family such as lettuce or cabbage. So then you grow the pungent plants such as marigold and basil in the garden to keep away pests. So marigold and basil is recommended when you plant in these tomatoes, peppers, or melangem. The diseases that occur in tomato would be tomato blight, which is where you see black spots on leaves, the powdery mildew, where you see white velvet covers on the leaves, the aphids, where the leaves curl up. So the aphids would be the insects as shown in the picture below. Those are aphids. Then the tomato blight is seen in the top picture here with the black spots. The anthracnose is this here, where you see the dark area around the stem of between the stem and the fruit. Then the septorial leaf spots, that is another type of blight. Then white flies occur, which gather on the underside of the leaves. The tomato pinworm, those are the larvae which dig tunnels on the stems and leaves of the plant. So that is what is shown in the picture at the right here. The tomato pinworm would have attacked the leaf, causing the white coloration here. And note that the copper-based treatments, such as Bordeaux mixture applied as a deterrent, help to avoid most diseases that impact tomato growing. So copper-based treatments are useful for destruction of these diseases. Now the disease control chart here would show you that the 3 types of disease: Fusarium wilt, bacterial wilt, and tobacco mosaic virus. The symptoms of the Fusarium wilt would be wilting of the plants at seedling stage, and it worsens progressively with eventual death. The control of Fusarium wilt would be treat the soil before planting with soil fungicide, example, Banrot or Bravo. Second, the bacterial wilt disease, the symptoms are severe wilting of the plant in 2 to 3 days. The control measure would be remove the affected plants with no chemical cure, and there's no chemical cure. Use the tolerant varieties such as Captain. So the variety that is resistant to the bacterial wilt is the captain variety in the tomato. The tobacco mosaic virus, the symptoms are slight yellowing of the entire plant, and then stunting of the leaves at the growing point, and stunting of the entire plant itself. The control: do not smoke in tomato fields, and no chemical cure is available and does not affect the production. So those are the three main diseases in tomato. And let us look now at corn, and after this we will go to the break. With corn cultivation now, it belongs to the Gramineae family, and it is an important crop that supplies food for human and animal consumption. It is a good source of carbohydrate, vitamin B1, B5, C, and E, phosphorus, magnesium, iron, and zinc. And it contains fiber, which helps the digestive system to function properly. So this is a diagram of field corn grown in the field. The definition of the parts of the corn, we have the tassel, which is this fluffy part at the top. It's a group of male flowers which produce pollen, and the female flowers develop into the corn, which is referred to as the ear. The long soft threads at the top is called silk. So the top here, these strands here are called silk. The pollen is deposited on the silk and fertilizes the female flowers, which develop into the corn ear. The stages of maturity of the corn. Corn grown in Trinidad is used in all three stages of maturity. In the young green corn, which is 10 to 12 weeks after planting, they may be consumed as boiled corn or used in soups and vegetable dishes. Then the semi-mature green corn, which is at 12 to 14 weeks after planting, may be roasted. Then the mature dried corn, which is at 14 to 16 weeks after planting, may be grown into flour, ground into flour, or the whole grains used in making animal feed. The varieties of corn we have is the C1 MMYT, that is on an open pollinated field variety, and the seeds can be collected and replanted as the next crop. The seeds of this variety are true to type, which means the young plants will have the characteristic of the parent plant. The second type of corn is the Pioneer hybrid. With the Pioneer hybrid, the seeds from this type should not be collected and replanted. The plants grown from these seeds will not have characteristics of the parent plant. The planting and management of the corn crops. Corn grows well in almost any soil type, but a loose, friable soil always gives better results, and the pH should be between 5.5 and 6.5. Therefore, soil tests are recommended to determine the soil pH and the amount of limestone and fertilizer needed for optimum production. So it is always best to get a soil test to determine the pH so that you will know what type of fertilizer and nutrients would be required. Land preparation of corn. Firstly, clear the land of vegetation, then deep plow, then add limestone if needed, then add cured, well-rotted manure to improve the soil structure and fertility if needed, then rotovate the soil, and finally establish drains. The spacing of the corn now. The corn seeds are planted in the soil manually, by hand, or using mechanical planters, and you space these plants at 1 foot within the rows and at 3 feet between rows. Planting of the seeds. When you have the corn seeds as shown in the diagram, You plant 2 seeds per hole, about 2 to 3 centimeters deep, and cover lightly with soil. An average of 4 dried corns will yield about 1 pound of seeds. So 4 dried corns, when you, that is the mature corn, you would get at least a pound of seed from that. An average of 10 to 12 pounds of the seeds is needed to plant approximately 1 acre of land. And an average of 51 pounds of seed is needed to plant 1 hectare of land. 1 hectare would hold 60,000 plants, and you have a minimum of 20 to 25 corn plants in a home garden will allow for adequate pollination and formation of grains on the corn cob. Seeds must be sown in 2 to 3 rows to allow for pollination by wind. 1 hectare can hold these 60,000 plants, and corn can be harvested from these cultivation plots. Oh dear, I keep pressing this. Let me get back to that. Okay, irrigating corn plants. Now we water it as required for seed germination, and it must be provided throughout the life of the crop. Excessive watering or waterlogged soils may cause the seeds to rot or the plants will die. Fertilizing of corn. The corn plant requires all elements of optimum growth and production. These are provided by a growing medium. However, nitrogen and potassium are needed in larger amounts, and you use these fertilizers to provide additional nutrients as needed. On a small scale for the garden cultivation, fertilizer can be placed around the individual plant, and each plant requires approximately 10 to 15 grams of fertilizer per application. The stages of fertilizing at planting or within 2 weeks after planting, you spread approximately 300 pounds per acre or 140 kilograms per hectare of fertilizer high in phosphorus. So that's again, that's in the growing stage, the young stage, you use phosphorus 12-24-12 or triple super phosphate. After the 3 weeks, 3 weeks after the plants have emerged, and you use a mixture of urea of 12-24-12 or triple super phosphates again. So you use it again after the plants have emerged from the planting, right? Then from 7 weeks after plants have emerged, you use approximately 140 kilograms per hectare of fertilizer high in potassium. So that would be 9-6-24 or 12-12-17-2 plus trace elements. And that will be after 7 weeks. Weeding in the weed controls, we have you keep the field weed free at all stages in the growth. And then pre-emergent or post-emergent herbicides can be used according to the manufacturer's recommendation. And corn belongs to the grass family, therefore caution is recommended when choosing weedicides. Always use protective gear when mixing and spraying the weedicides. So we use weedicides and keep weeds as much as possible out of the field. Pest and disease, we have major pests such as corn earworm, then corn leafworm, and or the armyworm, and finally birds. So birds can attack the corn in the field. These are major pests. This is one of the corn earworm here. Then you have the adult moth lays eggs on the developing silks or on the leaves near the ear. The egg hatches into larvae which follow the silk down the ear where they feed. Once the larvae is protected by the husk covering, there is no effective control measure. So that is how the corn earworm attacks the corn armyworm. This is shown in this picture. The adult moth lays the egg on the rolled leaf of the corn plant, and the eggs hatch into the larvae, which then feed on the leaf. It is only when the leaf fully emerges that the pest damage is seen. Spray with a systemic insecticide at the recommended rates to manage and control corn earworm and the corn armyworm, taking into account the pre-harvest interval. That is the period of time when no harvesting should be done because the pesticide residue is still on the produce. Management of corn, well, disease management, you have the downy mildew and the rust, which are diseases that affect leaves of the corn plant. Harvesting the corn now, one corn plant produces two corn, but only one will be marketable. Young green corn, this is ready for harvesting at 10 to 12 weeks after seeds were planted. And at this stage, the silk turns brown and the corn grains or kernels are at the milk stage, good for boiling. The semi-mature green corn will be ready for harvesting at 12 to 14 weeks after planting. At this stage, the husk changes color from green to yellow. Then it is to be noted the quality of the young green and semi-mature corn starts deteriorating within a week after harvesting. The mature corn, the mature or dried corn will be ready for harvest after 14 to 16 weeks after the planting. At this stage, the husk is cream. Then at harvesting, hold the corn ear firmly and pull downwards briskly for it to snap away from the plant. A sharp knife or cutlass can also be used to remove the ear from the plant. Use plastic harvesting crates to collect and transport the corn and store in a cool, dry area. The shelf life is further reduced once the husk is removed from around the corn. This is a tentative cost estimate of producing young green corn. And you estimate firstly for land preparation where you brush cut, plow, and rotivate. This is for 1 hectare acreage, and these are the steps: land preparation. Then you have for the seeds, you apply manure and limestone. Then the fertilizers are high nitrogen, high phosphorus, and high potassium, giving you the quantity of bags to be supplied per hectare. And then you apply pre-emergent weedicides, you apply insecticides, and you have labor for 6-day man days that will produce 1 hectare of corn. And you have a total cost of around $32,000 TT dollars, and that will give you approximate costing for corn cultivation. The second half, I'll give you another costing for another type of crop. So I think that will be it for the first half of this module. And I will now take you all to a coffee break, and we'll have 5 minutes. So we'll come back again at 20 past 6 after the coffee.
Michelle.
Questions? Yeah.
We have one quick question.
Okay. Can I get that? Yes. What's the question?
Mark?
Yes.
Okay, I'm going to move.
I'm listening. Hello?
I'm going to move on to Shobha.
Okay. Yes, good afternoon, Shobha. Good afternoon. I think maybe mute, if you can mute the mic. Yes.
Hearing me now?
Yes, I'm hearing. Yes.
Right. I wanted to find out, how do you practice field sanitation, and also what is a systemic insecticide, and could I get an example of one?
Yes, well, we have various insecticides, and these are applied at various stages, you know, of the growth of the plants. Now you have some that are contact insecticides where you apply directly, and then you have where there's no contact. So systemic comes like one of those where you don't have that contact with the actual, you know, insect. Or but there are various types of insecticides, and when you go to purchase it, you tell them exactly what type you want, if it is the systemic, the contact, or whatever, because they will the salesperson at the agro shop will have to they will ask you which kind you want to get. So you need to tell them exactly which kind you need, right? And the other question is, again,
I just wanted to know, is it related to like how we have systemic weedicides where it kills the entire weed? So
yes, it is the same concept. Because it is the same concept, because these herbicides, weedicides, insecticides, miticides, all these fall under the one name of pesticides. So these pesticides have all types. Some attack insects, some attack plants, and they attack different, you know, they are, so therefore systemic is just a terminology that you will have to give when you go to purchase these the agro shop.
No, normally so what we understand by systemic is that like in relation to the herbicide, the plant, the chemical itself goes through the entire plant and kills the plant from top to bottom. So when we hear a systemic insecticide, we want to know if there is something new out now that goes into the plant, that the plant itself develops an immunity to this particular insect.
Okay, well, that is very interesting. It would I would advise. I would certainly look into that, and it is something that but the agro shops, they know a lot about these things. And when
what I'm saying is that if we're referring to insecticide, I don't think there's anything like a systemic insecticide. They are systemic herbicide, but there's no such thing as systemic insecticide.
Well, I'll certainly look into it, and I will research it. If I see that there isn't one, I will indicate in the next module exactly what you're saying, and I'll confirm it, right?
Yes, sure.
In the next module, I'll bring it up again, and I'll definitely confirm it.
Okay, thank you for...
Thanks very much. Okay.
Hi, Michelle. We have Joy.
Yes, good day. Good afternoon, Joy.
Yes, good afternoon.
Yes.
Right. When we were talking about the tomatoes, and same time is when you had a little mishap.
Okay.
Right? Now, you were saying that there is something that throughout the life of the crop, we need to put on the tomato, but I didn't get the name of what you said. You said something throughout the life of the crop, as though some grand something.
Was it the granules, the fertilizer granules?
Oh, probably is that. Okay.
Yeah, yeah, it had to be the fertilizer granules.
Okay.
That you apply until, but you apply it up in the pre-emergent stage of the plant, well, the harvesting, I mean, before the harvesting, because you don't want to put anything when the harvesting takes place.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right, thank you so much.
Okay, sure. So I'll do a bit of research about the systemic thing, and at the next module, I'll discuss it, right?
Michelle, we have a couple more.
Okay.
Are you taking them?
Sure.
Okay, we have Judith.
Good afternoon, Judith.
Hi. Hi, good afternoon. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Thanks. Thanks for the presentation so far.
Okay.
I'm asking about melangen. I have found that the blossoms tend to fall off. How can we prevent the blossoms from falling off of the plant in the early stages for the melangen plant?
Well, as I said, there are chemicals that you would use that, because remember there's the application of these nutrients, they prevent the falling of these flowers and so on. So the certain nutrients are required that is causing the blossoms to fall. So it's lacking in something. So normally, sometimes you need to, when you see these things happening, you take a photo, you carry it to the agro shop and ask them what what they have for these things that the flowers and so on.
Would high potassium fertilizer help there?
Well, I would have discussed it during the session. So you would have seen the various fertilizers and the purposes of the various fertilizers. So you can.
That is true.
Yes, you would have seen it in during the session. So.
Right, and the high potassium was given for flowering at the flowering stage to develop the fruit, I would imagine. So but I did not hear you talk specifically to how to prevent the blossoms of the melangen from falling off, and that's specifically what I'm asking about.
Okay, right. Well, this is something I will do a little research on and let you know in the next module. You know.
Okay, thank you so much.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you for the question. Anyone has further questions?
We have Alicia.
Okay. Good afternoon, Alicia.
Hi, good afternoon. Thank you very much for your presentations.
You're welcome.
I have a lot of allergies, girl. I'm just I'm now learning to plant. I'm home and I'm learning to plant and all of that.
Yes.
But what is, can we use anything other than all these chemicals as
insecticides?
As in insecticides?
And they're natural insecticides. Any
natural?
Yes, I discussed that too in one of the modules, that there are biological agents that and natural pests that could destroy these things, because even in this module I mentioned the pirate bug that kills the thrips, and you don't need to use any chemicals for that. The pirate bug, it feeds on the thrips. And then you have the ladybug beetle, the ladybug.
Yes, yes.
On the mealybugs. So those are natural natural biological agents. So you don't always need chemicals. You could use insects, and you could have natural other natural agents. You know, cultural practices. You have things added to the soil, and things like vinegar. Sometimes that is destructive to ants, and so.
All right.
So
I have pimento peppers, and grasshoppers are coming and eating them and leaving holes.
Yes.
Pimento peppers.
Yes, yes.
But I don't want to kill my grasshopper.
Yes. Well, that comes like the locusts. They have all types of chemicals for locusts, and the grasshoppers fall in that category. And but the thing is, the agro shops, they have the latest knowledge of what are the latest types of insecticides available that could be safe to for humans, because there are various stages of toxicity in these pesticides, in these insecticides. You have level 1 to 4, 1 being the most toxic, and then you get less and less toxicity. So when you have level 1 of insecticide, that's a highly toxic one. So there are different stages, and you just have to look at the labeling on the container to know how toxic it would be to human health.
Okay.
So just look out for the labels, you know?
Yes, yes.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you very, very much for your assistance.
Sure, no problem. So if there are no questions, we are now at 6:30. So we'll just take the 5-minute break and come back at 25 to 7, and we'll finish at 7. So, okay, let's go to a 5-minute break now, and thanks for partaking in this webinar for now. We'll be back in 5 minutes. Well, thank you. Okay, well, good afternoon again, everyone. Welcome back, and we are on the second half of this webinar today on vegetable crop cultivation. So let's start in the second half now. We start with cucumbers. Cucumbers are a warm season vegetable and is very sensitive to cold weather. However, it could be grown under a wide range of temperature and moisture conditions. Potting soil for cucumbers, always use good quality potting mix or potting soil or container mix. Use organic potting soil that does not contain fertilizer or wetting agents. If the potting soil is pre-mixed, don't add any more fertilizer. If your potting soil doesn't have pre-mixed fertilizer, amend it with all-purpose fertilizer before planting the cucumbers. The soil requirement, we have the cucumbers prefer loose, well-drained soil, rich in organic matter. Prepare the beds in advance for planting by adding 2 to 3 inches of aged compost, commercial organic planting mix, and aged manure to the beds. Turn the soil 12 inches deep. Cucumbers grow best in fertile, well-plowed soil with large amount of compost. The compost should not contain the remains or discarded cucumbers, pumpkins, and melons, as these vegetables have similar disease problems. Container planting, use bigger containers of 12, 14, 16, or 24 inches diameter to hold more potting soil, which in turn retains water for longer periods of time. And the container, if it is too small and contains a small amount of soil, which will dry out fairly quickly. So they depend on consistent levels of moisture in the container. Suitable containers for growing the cucumbers are earth boxes or other self-watering containers. Seed cultivation, the crop is established by direct seeding. You construct ridges 3 to 4 feet apart. Then you make holes 1 foot apart within the rows. Then you place the seeds 2 to 3 seeds per hole, 1 inch deep, and cover with soil and water. Then thin out the seeds 1 per hole. If 2 plants are left per hole, adjust the plant space 2 feet apart. Land preparation, you plow the soil to provide moisture and good drainage, and then you plow organic matter into soil during the land preparation. Spray the soil with insecticides such as Bazudin, and before planting as a protective measure against insect pests such as ants and mole crickets. So again, you see the insects are prevented when you spray the soil, and the Bazudin is the recommended insecticide. Trellising the cucumbers, set the trellises or supports in place to grow the cucumbers up or mound the soil to create a small hill off which cucumber vines can run, and use the trellis of 4 to 6 feet tall. Create the mound at least 16 inches across and several inches high. Space the mounds 4 to 6 feet apart. Then we have the purpose of these trellising. There are several reasons, which is if the vines are sprawling all or on the ground, the cucumbers will become dirty and are susceptible to damage by wildlife and insects. Then you need to trellis cucumbers. The area that is trellised is easier to find, the cucumbers will be easier to find and harvest, and their foliage receives more exposure to the sunlight. So in the photo, you would see the leaves spread widely along on the trellis. Irrigating now, You set hose or drip irrigation at the base of the plants to irrigate, and that gives the cucumbers at least 1 inch of water each week during the dry season. Always water at the base of the plant, and the moisture on the leaves can result in fungal disease such as powdery and downy mildew. So leaves may wilt in the afternoon in hot weather, and that is because the plants are taking up water faster than the roots can supply. So when the leaves wilt in the afternoon, it means that the roots are not supplying sufficient water to the plant. If the plants are wilted in the morning, the soil is too dry and needs immediate water. Mulch around the plants to slow soil moisture evaporation, and also to avoid soil compaction caused by heavy watering. So the mulch, it prevents the evaporation of the water from the soil. Too little water or inconsistent watering causes cucumbers to have odd shape or bitter taste. So inconsistent watering is not a good thing. An easy way to measure soil moisture is to stick your index finger into the soil, and if the finger comes out dry it's time for watering of the plant. So that is just a simple test for soil moisture. Fertilizing of cucumbers, the rate of fertilizer given will depend on the quality of the soil and the maturity of the plant. The NPK can be given to them when applying the fertilizer. You place 2.5 inches from the plant and 1.5 inch deep. All the fertilizer should be covered. Weed control, it is usually done manually and it's best done as weeds appear. Also mold the plants after weeding. However, chemical weed control may be necessary. The diseases of cucumber are anthracnose, mildew, mosaic virus, and scab. Pests of the cucumber, we have the squash bugs, which attack seedlings. This is a picture of squash bug on the right. Aphids, which I showed earlier, they are a nuisance for any vegetable plant, but it can be easily managed. We have powdery mildew and the cucumber beetle, which is shown on the right again here with the spots that attacks the vines and can cause disease. The diseases in the cucumber would be the white powder mildew and the Sphaerotheca virus. So these are the powdery mildew on the leaves as you see in the pictures. And you have a mildew powdery one as well on the cucumber itself. Chemical pest control in cucumbers. We called the 3 pests earlier: aphids, beetles, and anthracnose. So the aphids, the chemical decysorthine is the chemical for that, and the dosage is 2 teaspoons per gallon, 3 teaspoons per gallon. Then the beetle, we have the chemical bazudin for destroying the beetle at 2 teaspoons per gallon, 3 teaspoons per gallon, sorry. And anthracnose, we have the benlate diethane chemical and at a dosage of 1 ounce per gallon. Harvesting of the cucumber, we go from tiny to enormous size in just a few days, and almost all cucumbers become bitter and seedy if left on the vine too long. So we must make sure to check the plants often for ripe cucumbers. use the garden clipper or scissors to harvest the cucumbers. And if you pull cucumbers off the vine, you risk damaging the vine, which can easily break. Harvest often, because the more you harvest, the more you will encourage production. And if you find overgrown or damaged cucumbers, remove it from the vine and discard it. This is the female flower here because it is rounded at the base. And there are actually male flowers as well on the cucumber plant, but there's a difference between the male flower and the female flower as seen from the base being swollen for the female flower. Pumpkin now, let us discuss that. Pumpkin or Cucurbita moschata belongs to the cucurbit family, and it includes squash, cantaloupe, cucumbers, watermelons, and gourds. Plants with long stems that grow rapidly, and they attach themselves to support by tendrils and bear fleshy fruits. Pumpkin is more resilient to pests and disease as compared to watermelon. It withstands long, dry periods, and the crops mature in 3.5 months with expected yield of 12,000 to 20,000 pounds per acre. And we have some uses of pumpkin. It's a good source of vitamin A, B, and C, as well as minerals. All parts of the plant is used. The pumpkin could be steamed, boiled, or baked, and used even as a beverage, soup, curry, pastry, or dessert. Pumpkin is also a major ingredient in ketchup and is used for animal feed as well. The varieties in Trinidad, we have common open pollinated varieties such as the Sweet Mama, Jamaican, local large, iron cap, and Jack O'Lantern. These are open pollinated, meaning pollinated by wind, insects, and birds. Preparing the pumpkin seeds. Pumpkins grow by direct seeding or transplanting, and the selected seeds that are well formed with thick flesh, smooth skin, and 20-pound size of pumpkins. These are where the seeds are selected from. We wash the seeds and sun dry it for 3 to 4 days, then dry in a shaded area for 3 to 4 days. The moisture content must be reduced to 12 to 14%. Then you treat the dry seeds with appropriate fungicides, and then we store the seeds by labeling and double seal and refrigerating, and they can remain viable for 1 to 2 years in a refrigerator. So these are preparation of the seeds, and this is how it looks in the photo. The seedlings now, when you have to prepare it, you produce seedlings, water adequately during the 3 to 5 day germination period. Then you encourage root development by applying fertilizer solution high in phosphorus 4 to 5 days after germination at a rate of 1 teaspoon per gallon of water. Then you only apply one application of this mixture is required. Transplanting the seedlings now. The seedlings are ready to transplant after 10 to 12 days after germination. Harden the seedling by allowing gradual exposure to full sunlight over 3 to 4 days before placing in the field. Healthy seedlings has a lush green appearance with 3 to 4 leaves and about 4 inches in height. A healthy root system and no sign of insect or disease attack. Land preparation, you test the soil before planting to determine the acidity or alkalinity. You fertilize, and you have to add fertilizer and there are other requirements for this. The pumpkins can be cultivated on any fertile, well-drained soil, and it grows best between pH of 5.5 to 6.8. Proper land preparation allows for strong root development, efficient water and nutrient uptake, adequate drainage and water retention, good aeration of soil, effective control of pests and disease as well as weeds. And we must note that uptake of nutrients is hindered by very acidic soils, less than 5. So we try to avoid acidic soils in these cultivation of these vegetables. Steps in the land prep, I said as before, prepare land by clearing and brush cutting. Then you spray with glyphosate weedicide or both, and you plow the soil. Then you apply agricultural lime to reduce acidity, and then you apply cured manure to improve the soil if necessary. The land preparation of the pumpkin continues where you refine the soil using rotavators. Then the rotavator gives the soil a finer tilth and allows manure and lime to be incorporated into the soil. You create beds by forming drains 10 feet apart and using narrower beds, using the narrower beds for clay soils and wider beds for the sandier soils. The pumpkin cannot tolerate waterlogging, and quantities added for soil, when you have to add lime, you use 50 bags per hectare or 20 bags per acre. For cured manure, we use 250 bags per hectare or 100 bags per acre. We continue with land preparation. If the lime is used, wait 1 month before planting. This allows the lime to react with the soil so that the crop will get the full benefits of the lime. Another application of the weedicide may be necessary before planting, as weeds may grow within this 1 month period. For the wet season planting, beds should be raised along the middle or cambered area to allow good drainage. On steep hillsides, tillage is not done. The crop is planted on handmade mounds in contour fashion across the hill. Those are on the steep hillsides. So this is done to conserve the soil and allow easier access for growing and harvesting operations. Good agricultural practices. The produce must be free from microbial contamination, as that is injurious and fatal to humans, such as E. coli bacteria and salmonella and so on. Produce must be free from pesticide residues that have been deemed harmful to human health and the environment. And these quality standards are applicable to both interior and exterior of the produce. Components of good agricultural practices are good personal hygiene, good quality of water, care and use of the use of manure, and safe use of the pesticides. Proper harvesting, handling, and transport and storage of the produce. Proper irrigation and clean irrigation water must be used, free from contamination and fecal matter, both from human or livestock and from industrial waste. Manure must be placed in a pile and covered for 4 to 6 months to allow composting or curing. This allows natural decomposition of the manure. Planting using the seedlings, you mark points along the middle of the bed at desired spacings, and you create circular mounds around each point about 3 feet in diameter and 1 foot high. Make a planting hole in the middle of each mound, and the hole should be made up to 2 to 3 inches depth, but wide enough to plant 3 seedlings. Alternatively, 3 small holes may be dug in a triangular fashion in the middle of the mound, and use high phosphate fertilizer in the planting hole of 12-24-12, which is optional, And if used, apply the fertilizer at 1 teaspoon per hole and cover with 2 inches of soil. Planting pumping with seedlings, you have the chart that shows with the 10-foot beds, the width where beds are 10 feet width, you have per hectare 2,900 plants per hectare, seedlings per hectare, or 1,200 seedlings per hectare. And if it is planted 12 feet apart, you would have 2,500 seedlings per hectare and 1,000 seedlings per acre. Apply the fungicide as a drench in the planting hole. And to prevent the attack by fungi and soil insecticide is used to prevent attack by cutworms and mole crickets. So we use both soil fungicide and soil insecticides. Plant 3 healthy seedlings per mound and water thoroughly. Direct seeding. You can use seeds planted directly in the soil. And you irrigate using both drip irrigation, overhead sprinkler irrigation as well is used, and fountain tubing, which I described earlier. You use pumps and PVC lines or hoses for the irrigation, and direct watering could be done as well using spray cans also for garden when you do it in gardens. Well, molding of the plants must be done before the vines start to spread, and you control the weeds with these molds. Pumpkin growth from seedling to harvest. You have the seedling is from 10 to 15 days of plant growth. Then after 1 to 5 weeks, you do the, after 15 days, that is when you do the transplanting, and it takes 1 to 5 weeks to mature. After the seedling matures, it starts to flower, and this will be at the 14th week. So it takes 5 to 14 weeks after transplanting for the crop plant to flower. The first harvest is done at 14 weeks after 100 days, and it is harvested when the pumpkin is mature at that stage, and it has a solid surface, and then you can harvest a second or third time after 17 weeks. You control weeds with pre-emergent herbicides, and you have weed control measures and so on. Use contact herbicides necessary before the plant starts to spread. And then you have selective herbicides which kill the grass but do not damage the crop. So those are the weed control measures. Fertilizing, they are applied at the base of the plant. And the fertilizers are based on the result of the soil test and the nutritional requirements. It is applied 3 times during the entire crop, fertilizers, and these fertilizers are applied in a circular band around the plants in the mound area. Calcium fertilizers are used to prevent blossom end rot and enhance fruit quality. It is applied as a granular way or along with other fertilizers such as wet salting. For pest and disease management, we use the IPM approach, which is integrated pest management. And this is the practice of combining several methods of pest control that are economically viable while ensuring minimal damage to human health and environment. The three major methods of IPM: cultural, biological, and chemical. So in this cycle, we see you have prevention, observation, and intervention. So this is a cycle of IPM. Diseases are the gummy stem blight, powdery mildew, bacterial wilt, and Phytophthora in root rot. This diagram here you see is like the gummy stem blight. The Phytophthora root rot, that pathogens invade the roots and so on, and it, with anthracnose, you have pathogens invading the foliage, and the small yellow water-soaked spots develop on the vegetable. Cultural practices in pest control. You have the cultural control involves best use practices such as the irrigation, drainage, fertilizer application, field sanitation, soil amendments, removal of crop residues, crop rotation, early removal and disposal of diseased plants, and other field practices. And that reduces levels of pests and cost of control. Biological pests, we have squash bugs, squash vine borers, and the biological pest that destroys these bugs and squash vine borers are the ladybird beetles, the wasp, spiders, even frogs, and we have marigold and neem, which also repel pests. Chemical control, we have pesticides, which when needed, as recommended on the label, you apply as recommended, as stated on the labels. The major pests of pumpkin are the thrip, the pumpkin caterpillar, the piercing bugs, striped cucumber worm, and these are some major pests with control measures that are recommended. They have insecticides that have long residual. So these are just some recommendations for the pests and the symptoms that may occur. The diseases, we have fungal growth and so on. I would have, lots of these things were explained earlier, and a lot of the same diseases occur with the pumpkin. These are some of them: gummy stem blight, downy mildew, leaf spots, and then powdery mildew and southern blight. And these are how they appear on the leaves of the pumpkin. The mature pumpkin, well, how to determine the pumpkin matures at 3.5 months. And the overall color is yellow, and it has a shiny green, so pale yellow color. The stem and tendril close to the pumpkin begin to dry, and there's a distinct abscission layer that appears between the stem and the pumpkin. Harvesting, it is done where you put them in crates after harvest. You must remove any soil from the pumpkin, and you cut with pumpkins cut with the long stems will damage others when transporting, so you don't have the stems too long. Cut as close as possible to the pumpkin and ensure the stem does not break off from the pumpkin. Polythene, plastic spread on the floor to prevent contaminants from the field to the shed reduces deterioration. And the plastic crates are for the transportation. They hold at about 365 kilograms or 800 pounds. Transporting, you use vehicle trays. These trays must be properly washed, especially if they have been used to transport manure or pesticides. And you transport in the cooler periods of the day. The base and sides of the transport vehicle must be cushioned to prevent bruising and other injury to the pumpkin. Then there must be no cross-contamination from other produce when transporting, when you're or loading or unloading storage and transportation operations. Storing of the pumpkin, it's stored at room temperature and at relative humidity 65 to 70% for 6 weeks. For export, the pumpkin must be washed in running tap water immersed in sanitizing dip for 1 to 2 minutes, air dried, and then packaged in ventilated netted bags. And this is a cost estimate again, as I did for the corn. This is an estimate for pumpkin, where you, for a 1 hectare plot, you have land preparation followed by transplanting seedlings, then fertilizing with the various fertilizers, phosphorus, potassium, nitrogen, the manure. Then you have fungicides with the various costings. Then you have insecticides with the costings, weedicides. Then labor that is required. You have labor for land prep, transplanting, fertilizing, pest disease control, weed control, harvesting, and loading vehicles in the field. So you have costings for labor, and then you have transportation costs for seedling and fertilizer and manure transport. So when you add all the various sections, you get a costing of, let's say, $16,000 per hectare or $6,000 TT dollars per acre for a 1 hectare plot. So this is a tentative costing for pumpkin on a 1 hectare plot. So integrated pest management is also connected with integrated crop management, where integrated crop management looks at the host rather than at the pest. And then you have the various sections where you must pay attention to in integrated crop management, where you monitor and audit, you do crop protection, you organize management, you have energy management as well. So for instance, if you're using solar energy or wind energy to perform irrigation, and so you have wildlife and landscape management, waste and pollution management, soil and water management, crop variety and rotation, and crop nutrition. So there's an interconnection with the integrated crop management and the integrated pest management. This is some technology which was observed for mulch and so on when I had studied agriculture in Israel a couple years ago. In Israel, they use various mulches to prevent pests. So materials which aid in IPM are the photoselective greenhouse covers, reflective mulch as a yellow brown or silver brown. So this is the plant, and you have a yellow mulch which is a reflective covering around the plants, and that obstructs insects or it prevents insects. It tracks the insect. And the silver one on this, around the plant here, the silver brown also prevents insects. We have polytrap and skirtings for mass trapping of insects. So these skirtings attract the insects, and the insects stick onto these polytraps. The blue colors are for trapping thrips, and the yellow ones for aphids, whiteflies, and other insects. So these are how these yellow skirting looks when they have greenhouses. They put the skirting around the greenhouse, and the yellow colors would attract certain insects, and as you see, they stick onto it and kill it. Thrips would be attracted to a blue skirting. So if the color was blue, the thrips would stick onto it. Mulch films, these decrease the soil water loss by evaporation from 25 to 60%. So these are the same mulch films which I showed it with the yellow and the brown color, the silver brown color. And it maintains a constant moisture level in the medium. It controls weeds and controls soil temperature as well. So these are the mulch colors as I showed you earlier. There's a yellow one, and this one is a reddish color. So when you use an opaque one, there's no light transmission, and that will have been the blackish silver mulch. And these are pictures of mulches which they use in Israel. And these cover the soil, and corn is planted under a thermic film. These are the thermic films. Black silver mulch, these cover the soil in open fields, and these prevent pests, and it prevents water from evaporating from the soil. And yellow brown mulch, these cover the soil again around the plant. Degradable plastic, and this is used as mulch around the this would looks like watermelon in this case. And this is laying of Asgard for methyl bromide fumigation. So they roll out a mulch on the land, and that is a protective mechanism for pests and disease. So that is all I have to offer. This is it for the module 3, and I thank you for paying attention so intently. And I know I have a few questions that I'll do some research on for the next time. And I appreciate everyone for attending this module on vegetable crop cultivation. For further information, you may email at this email address, michelleshah@pscutt.com. And we have 5 branches of the PSCU, which you can call any of these phone numbers for information. And I look forward to seeing you all in the future, in the next session for module 4. And I thank you very much for listening. And any questions, feel free, please, the floor is open if you have any questions.
We have Yolanda.
Okay, good afternoon. Yes, could you unmute the, I'm not hearing you, if you unmute the mic.
Okay, I'm going on to Jefferson.
Okay. Good afternoon, Jefferson. Good afternoon. Could you unmute? I'm seeing your mic is muted. Good afternoon. Can you unmute the mic?
Okay, I'm going to try Riyadh.
Yes, good afternoon, Riyadh.
Hi, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Okay. So, all right. So a couple of things from before, right?
Yes.
One, when you were talking about the, oh Lord, that product. All right. So Tambu is no longer in Trinidad. Tambu has not been sold in Trinidad for a while. Watching under the cost of production, right?
Okay.
So Tambu is not here. That's one. Two, with the melangin from just before, because I came on late, right? With the melangin and the drop flowers, right? There are multiple causes for drop flowers in melangin, right?
Yes.
One,
could you? I'll be happy to know.
Yeah. Right. So, just for your information, I'm an agronomist by profession, right?
Thanks.
So I'm a right. So
yes, thanks so much.
The melangin flower falls because of high daytime temperature, low nighttime temperature. So the weather conditions that we have right now, you might experience that. That's one. Two, sometimes because of an increase in nitrogen, so we put manure or you put fertilizers high in nitrogen, or you fertilize too often, right? That will cause the plants to actually go into excessive vegetative growth. So you might notice the melangin leaves are very big. Yes. And what happens is that, so the analogy I use is when the plant is bearing, it is like a pregnant lady.
Yes.
Right? When a lady is pregnant, the food has to go to the baby in the belly. Yes. When you put nitrogen, you're actually telling the person, when you put nitrogen, you're telling the lady or the food, you're directing the food into the lady instead of the baby. So you will get abortion occurring. That's number two. Yes, number three is environmental. Once again, not enough water means that the plant cannot take up or utilize the calcium. Mm-hmm. So calcium and boron are very critical elements needed at the time of flower production.
Right.
Right. And the number four, there's actually an insect called the midge. Now, most agricultural companies and most agro shops would recommend an insecticide at that point, right? And most shops will tell you, all right, use this insecticide because you have midge. But what you need to do is eliminate all other factors. Is my watering done properly? And often I tell large farmers in this country and throughout the region, there's when it comes to watering, there's quality of water and quantity of water. So most times we will say, all right, we use the hose. I'm sorry if I'm talking too much, huh?
No, I'm very happy that you contribute. I'm very happy.
Right. So some people will say, we put the hose by the plant or we run the water for 10 minutes, for 5 minutes, right?
Yes.
But the issue is, it is actually you need to maintain a certain soil moisture level throughout. So running water in dry season means that the water will run off. It won't saturate and penetrate the soil. So you need to be able to do that. Now, so that's another consideration. For the lady who had the flowers dropping, what you could say is a simple test to test to see if you have the midge. Take the flower when it drops in the morning, put it in a sandwich bag. Try to remove as much air as possible and leave it there for the day. And look to see if you see a little bug hopping out. If you have that, then you have the midge. Right?
Okay. Yes.
Right. So
I really appreciate this contribution.
No problem, right? Two more topics and that.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Systemic insecticides. So there are systemic insecticides. Systemic insecticides simply mean we put it in one place in the plant and it moves to where it is the targeted area. Admire or imidacloprid. Admire is a classic example. Admire is drenched in the roots early in most of your solanaceous crops. Tomatoes, hot peppers, melangin, even in the cucumbers that you were doing, pumpkin, right?
Okay.
It is drenched in the soil.
Yes.
So it is drenched in the root area, taken up by the roots, moves up the xylem into the leaves.
Okay.
And it kills white flies.
Okay. So it is put into the soil and moves up to the target parts.
Yes, because it moves up and down.
Beginning of the systemic, yes.
That is systemic.
Yes.
Right? With the organic, so there was a lady who was asking about moving away from the harsh chemicals, right?
Right.
There are, so you had it in your cost of production, the azadirachtin, which is really neem. Neem is an organic insecticide. It works as a repellent, as an insect growth regulator, meaning that when you apply it on the insect, it stops the insect from growing.
Yes.
It stops the insects from landing, right? And also because most of the neem products are what you call oil-based products, they are able as well to kill the eggs. So they kill the eggs of the insects as well.
Okay. That is great. So that is neem is a product sold at the agro shop.
Yeah. Neem. Okay. So there are lots of trade names, right? There's Nimbacidin, there's Neemex, there's BioNeem, right? So that's another thing.
I noticed it was in the cost module for the pumpkin at the end. I think I
saw it there. Okay. Right? There's a couple of products as well in your presentation. I'm just that not in Trinidad. So that's one that you need to look at.
And that was in the last few slides. Those were just some technical new technology which was discovered when I did some training in Israel, and they had those mulches and so on.
But the mulches is actually good technology because of weed management, right? Weed management, and so the mulch is excellent for weed management as well as trapping moisture in the root zone. That's excellent, right? But the agrochemicals part, there were a couple, and we could probably we could always discuss this. We could always send emails
and then in the future modules it could come up again, because every time we'll be bringing it up again, all these insecticides and stuff. So the insecticide topic will definitely come up again in the next training.
Right. That's one for your bacterial wilt aspect, right? Yes. So from technology, so there's Bacillus subtilis. Bacillus subtilis is an organic bacteria that actually has been shown to control bacterial wilt in cucurbits and in solanaceous crops.
Right. Thank you so much for this contribution. I really appreciate.
No problem.
Yes. And
all right, thanks a lot.
Thank you very much, Reynard Khan. Thank you so much for your contribution.
Okay, we just have two more. Chelsea.
Sure. Good afternoon, Chelsea. Good afternoon, Chelsea.
Okay, we have Lolita or Chelsea. Lolita.
Yes, good afternoon, Michelle.
Good afternoon, Lolita.
Yeah,
nice
it's a very interesting and informative session, I must say. I've learned a lot, but I too sort of concerned about the amount of pesticides and just sort of different things. And I wanted to ask you about the use of the vinegar.
Yes.
What can we use the vinegar for to assist us with controlling the pests? And what sort of vegetables it can help with?
Well, I have heard that there's a lot, vinegar has lots and lots of uses, and it is very applicable when it comes to killing ants. And ants is one of the very basic pests that attacks crops, right? So I have not listed it because it's not, it isn't mentioned in any official research which I have done, but I mentioned verbally because I know it works. But I will do a little more research to know what are the quantities and the ratios that it must be used.
Different vegetables you can use it for. I would be very happy to do that because
I have really heard that.
And I couldn't get any of those pesticides that you gave us there. They didn't have any, not one.
Yes, well, I know when I got the question about the Batrax and so, I had recommended Regent was the recommended pesticide. so I gave that information the last module. These are some other ideas, other research which I have done, and I heard about the vinegar, which, so I just mentioned verbally about that. So
yes, I read about it too, you know, somewhere.
Yes.
1 cup to a gallon of water, but I wasn't so sure what sort of vegetables and how you apply it, you know. So if you could give us some information on it next module, I'll be very happy.
That will be fine, yeah. Thanks for the question, Lolita. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks. So would anyone like any further questions answered? As I said, everyone who participates, they will be obtaining a certificate via email at the end of the sessions, and that will be, you know, coming towards the end of these modules. So any further, as people have been asking about the presentations, it will be put on the website, and they are all recorded. So I will still have to look into whether the slides would be allowed, but so far all I know is that the recordings will be put on the PSCU website. So thank you so much, everyone, for being such active participants. And I really look forward to the next session when we will be looking at other aspects in agriculture. Right? So thank you very much, everyone, and have a good evening. All right.